Thank you for listening to this new episode of the Business of Fun podcast. I am your host, Dave Wakeman. My guest today is Vance Morris. We had a lot of fun talking about service and wowing your customers and all kinds of really cool ways to infuse your events and your service with great customer service. So this is a fun one. Before I talk to you about my conversation with Vance, though, let me remind you to visit my website. It's davewakeman.com. You can also get the Talking Tickets newsletter at talkingtickets.substack.com. And there is a Talking Tickets Slack channel where over 400 people from around the world, I think it's over 400 people now, from around the world talk tickets every day. So check that out. That link is in the show notes. So back to Vance. Vance Morris, he has some of the greatest customer service experience of anybody I've met. He's worked with Walt Disney World, NASA, the Smithsonian, all real great places. He has this handout called 52 Low-Cost Ways to Wow Your Customers. So we talked about improving customer experience, touchpoint marketing, which is something I talk with you about a lot. We talk about the customer journey. We talk about, how how he's brought some of these experiences with Disney and NASA and the Smithsonian to his current work. We talk about things as simple as answering the phone, how people quantify and think about really great customer experiences. We talk about how business owners and business managers can think about customer service not as something that is a cost, but as a value add. We talk about competitor listening, and we talk about all kinds of really, really cool things. This is like a customer service, just banger. So here's my conversation with Vance Morris on the Business of Fun. All right, I'd like to welcome Vance Morris to the Business of Fun podcast. Vance, good morning. How are you?
Fantastic, Dave. We'll have some fun today, I hope.
Listen, the title of the podcast is The Business of Fun, therefore fun is expected.
Mandatory.
So we're gonna do exactly. It is a requirement. We don't do a lot of serious conversations here. Every now and then, but not often. But I was really excited to talk to you because you say that you are on a one-man mission to improve the customer experience, with the kicker being that it mostly sucks.
It does. Yes.
Tell me about that.
Doesn't matter where you go. The bar is set very low right now.
Tell me more.
You just anywhere you go. Even this morning, I went to my doctor's office, 8:00 appointment, and the nurse says, yeah, she'll be in here in about 15 minutes. She's not here yet. I'm like, well, where is she? She's dropping her daughter off at school. I said, well, why the hell did you make the appointment at 8? We should have made it at 8:15. It's just silly stuff like that. And seemingly one little thing like that wouldn't matter. But if you add up enough of these little things, with one business or one interaction, it'll completely blow it for you.
Well, so I'm curious then, because I share a similar frustration to you. I know you had a long history with Disney, and I have always been, when I was a kid in high school, I grew up in South Florida, so I knew a lot about Disney. I knew a lot of people who would go to work for Disney. I knew all of these things. So I've really had a fascination. But going back to what you talked about, where it's like these little things, they add up, right? When I teach my executive MBA course in brand management, I teach the students about touch points. And what I tell them is that the touch points start much earlier than you imagine, and they go on much longer than you think. But the little stuff matters more than you imagine. And what you talked about was they're not just necessarily siloed in that one experience. They can it's sort of, if the whole environment is built around a lack of focus on customer experience and customer service and just being thoughtful, then it makes your whole existence suffer a little.
You hit the point though on the whole customer journey and each interaction point. And we'll take Disney for an example. Seemingly you would not go to Disney for a superior parking experience, right? But if you didn't have a great parking experience, and they were grumbly. They sent you all over the parking lot. The tram was late, yada yada yada. Now you're cranky.
Hmm.
And what don't cranky people do? They don't have fun. And if you're not having fun, you're not going to spend money. So Disney knows that people have got to have a flawless experience parking their car in order for them to get in, have fun, and spend money. So you're right. It goes way beyond or before and beyond the actual using of the service or consuming of the product.
Yeah, and the way you talk about it, just with the example of Disney and parking, one of the like things I remember the most is taking the monorail when I was a kid, to from the parking lot to the
Yeah.
theme park. Um, but in this environment where a lot of people, a lot of businesses are super siloed, and so especially like arts, sports, entertainment, they're siloed, and like each of these points, maybe they don't have as much control over. Um, you know, I don't understand. I don't think people are paying enough attention to these things because there's a culture of let's maximize every touch point, make as much money off of every touch point, and not think about the cohesiveness of that experience. What's your experience about that? Because you talked about like if cranky people don't spend money, and yet if your starting point is a bad experience, how do A, can you come back from that, and B, how do you do that?
Sure. I mean, you can certainly come back from it. It's not easy. I mean, it certainly would have been better had they had a great experience to
Hmm.
begin with, because now you've got nothing to recover from. And I think a lot of times, I mean, we're all humans. I mean, here in Maryland, I own 3 home service businesses, and we make mistakes. I get it. But it's all in how you respond to the mistake. And sometimes you have a better experience with the company because of how they reacted to a mistake that they made. So, for example, I run a couple of companies. I've got technicians on the road, and they know that if they are running late to their next appointment, one, obviously they call, and then they call the office, and then that way the customer service rep will call the customer, so she gets 2 calls. But the guy knows to stop at the next local grocery store, buy some flowers, and bring it to the next job, because you can't yell at a guy who's standing on your front porch with a bouquet of flowers, sad puppy dog eyes, saying, "Look, I'm really sorry I'm late. Here's some flowers for your home. Let's get started." And people are like, "Okay, you were late. What flowers? Thank you."
Yeah, oh
Um,
yeah. You
so
short circuit it.
it's how you respond to that kind of stuff, and people don't think, they're like, "Oh, I'm late. They'll deal with it." I'm like, well, no, that's just not the way, not the
They
way
may
to go
deal with
about
it,
it.
but it's not the right way to assume that like on you made it from being your problem to their problem,
Right.
or and
Um,
I just don't like that.
I mean, when was the last time you had a plumber bring you flowers? Probably never, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. No,
I mean, I'm not saying we're late all the time, but once a month, you get
it
stuck behind a
happens.
school bus, job gets bigger, whatever. Um, People, we value people's time as
Hmm.
much as we value our own time. And we understand when we're late, well, that's impacting somebody else. And well, we want to, one, recognize that it's happening, and two, okay, what can we do to make up for it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great approach. And like you said, or I use the term short circuit, but it'll kind of mute that negativity. And look, I mean, we are none of us are not none of us, because that would be I know I would get hammered for that. But most of us are pretty reasonable, right? Like if somebody's like,
Yeah,
especially around here, right? Like because you live in Maryland, I live in DC, the traffic can be brutal, and you sometimes can't plan for it.
sure.
Yeah, and so it's just human thoughtful, like just recognition of the other person as a human who has their own challenges, their own
Yep.
struggles, the only things they're dealing with. I think that's a really really great place to start, and really it's a nice example to set. So if you're going to improve customer experience, which that's your mission, and one that I really am advocate for as well, because I think that, especially when you're dealing with people who are selling sports and entertainment,
Sure.
amusement and attractions like Disney,
Yep.
because there are a number of people that listen to this that in that world. Um, every little thing matters, and it's a chance that like there's a lot of competition is I guess the best way to put it, for
Sure.
people's time and attention and money. So where do you get people to start from? Like, what's the starting point that you advise people to begin with? Because I think
Yeah,
that's a challenge. Like, people don't know where to begin.
it is. And the starting point is not sexy. I hate to break it to everybody. It really isn't. It is coming up with your customer journey and mapping out each point where your business interacts with the customer, and you do it from the customer's point of view. So, what's the first point of contact? Is that a telephone call, a web form? They come to your office?
Mhm.
What is that? And then you try and figure out how can we create an experience out of this?
Mhm.
So, some of the points, though, are the customer is waiting. So let's say you're a financial advisor and you have your rubber chicken dinner where you invite everybody over, they listen to your spiel, and then you have a nice meal. And then the next step is to get them into the office for a consultation. Well, that consultation really isn't step two, it's step three because people are waiting. So you got to do it from the customer's point of view. So what are they doing while they're waiting? Well, they're might be complaining about the food from your meal. They're second guessing. They have an opportunity to just not show up. So what are we doing as a business
Mhm.
to create a fun, entertaining time during that wait? I mean, you go to Disney, you wait. I mean, that's just like part of
Yeah.
the shtick there, right? But they've got waiting all figured out. They entertain you while you're in line. They call it line entertainment. And so they may have some interactive things to do while you're in the queue. There's cast members walking around. There's, interactive games that you can be playing on your phone with with the attraction. And while they can't compress time, it's certainly a heck of a lot more fun than just standing there. And I think that's why, like some of the other entertainment companies, Six Flags and some of the others, aren't doing so well, is because they just let you stand there and wait with nothing to do, and it
Yeah.
feels
Mhm.
miserable. And actually, if you miss the wait at Disney, sometimes you're missing some of the best parts of the ride. Waiting is part of the attraction. And so really going back to my original thing is map out every single point that your company has an interaction. If there's a wait, great, that should be on there. And then you look at each one of those points and how do we make this better? Disney called it plussing. That's Walt's term for process improvement. So how do we plus this? And I mean, I do it when I'm working with my clients. We go through a brainstorming session. How can we make the experience of answering the telephone better? How can we make the experience of parking in our parking lot better? We all assume we're good at the thing we're selling, the service we're providing. That's just entry into the marketplace.
Mhm.
But in order I mean, I hate to break it to everybody. I mean, a dentist is a dentist is a dentist. I mean, a sports complex is a sports complex. What separates one from the other is the experience that's being delivered.
Mhm.
And no two places are going to have the same experience.
Yeah. I Now, on that idea too of mapping the customer journey, how much emphasis do you advise people to, or how much time do you and attention do you advise people to spend on those touch points that they can't even track? Because, right,
Sure.
originally I talked about the touch points, how they start earlier, and a lot of that comes up into the brand building. And Disney's great
Right.
at it because they've like
Yep.
they get their emotional drill into you early on in your life and they never let up. How much of that is because I think a lot of people they go, oh, well, Disney can do that. But actually, I think a lot of people have a lot more control
Yeah.
over that than they realize.
Everybody can do it. And, I think that, certainly once you've mapped this out, and I recommend if you have employees or other people on your team, don't do this in a silo. Do this with your folks because you're going to miss something. But is once you have it mapped out, you got to prioritize. Okay, where are we falling short? Those are probably the places you really want to focus on and bring them up to speed. The other is what's the most bang for your buck? If I focus 10% more attention on this area, will it return, some kind of ROI that makes an impact and makes a difference? So yeah, you've got to pick and choose and prioritize, and maybe sooner or later you'll get to the ones down below, but you really want to take care of those big ones. And you'll know. I mean, like I got a client who's a financial advisor out in California. She's in a big office building, probably like 200 tenants in this building, and people were getting lost trying to find her. And so what we did was we created a video of somebody driving into the parking lot, pulling into the assigned space with the big sign on it, walking into the building, showing them which button on the elevator to hit, which floor on the elevator to hit, and then walking them all the way around. And we emailed that video to them ahead of time. So now we've erased a friction point, and so people aren't frustrated when they get to that person's office. Or they show up. I mean, that was half the battle too, was people just get frustrated and say, oh, to hell with it. I don't, it's my first meeting. I don't need to go to this. I'll find another advisor, which is bad in itself. And then you can take that a tier up. So like they had a threshold, if you're bringing in 7 figures, assets under management, the advisor will actually meet you in the lobby. So you only get half of the video. And then there's your advisor standing there and escorts you up to the thing. So you can stratify it. You can put different filters on it and really have some fun with it. We had a great time doing the video. I mean, it's a 60-second video, but and it was done kind of clown car-ish, funny because you want to entertain people. But it got the point across, and people were entertained.
Yeah. And you said it was, you described it as fun, and you said a little clown carish, which is, I get it. But I think sometimes too, I think one of the challenges that people face, they struggle with, especially the audience of people listening to the podcast, is that they overweight the work that they're doing and the experience with too much baggage. And they lose a little bit of that spark, a little bit of that kind of magic and joy. When you encounter a situation like that, where it's like they forget that like the customer experience, it should be fun, maybe not in all situations, because some things need to be more pleasant or professionalized or whatever. How do you help people understand, like, put the right context around delivering a great experience?
Yeah, well, I present it a lot in financial terms because that's what kind of people understand. And I present it in the terms of retention. So it is extremely expensive to go and get a new customer. And it is relatively inexpensive to keep a customer. So for my business, I just got my November numbers for my home service business. It cost me $136 to get a new customer in the front door. That's, Google pay-per-click and the guy answering the phone and everything else. It only cost me $22 a year to keep a customer. So as soon as we serve an existing customer, we're $100 more profitable. And if I didn't have a great experience, I'd have almost no prayer of keeping them. And so I'm flushing $100 bills down the toilet all the time. But we deliver a great experience. Now, keeping them and reminding them of that experience, reminding them of that emotional connection we created, because you got to remember, businesses, people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. So having that in the forefront, and being able to monetize it and say, hey, if you kept more people instead of having always to go out and get new, you'd be a heck of a lot more profitable.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a little bit of this, like what you talk about, speaking in terms of the financial side of this thing, is I think like at least this is what I see too often is that people don't understand exactly where the money comes from, where the customers are coming from,
Mhm.
and they don't necessarily always appreciate how much it costs, right?
Right.
You know, people are really like attached to the COGS, the cost of goods and services number,
Mhm.
but they never put in the place that the COGS also include what you're talking about.
Customer
Um,
acquisition. Yeah.
Customer acquisition. It's like its own silo and its own bucket.
Yep.
And you talked about earlier with brainstorming the customer journey of breaking down the silos. This is another instance where I think the silo needs to be broken down. And so then again, I'm curious about the process here. Is like, how do you
Yeah.
break that down? Like, how do you help people understand this? Because that's really like, I think it's a structural setup of a lot of business.
Right. Well, I mean, I am constantly surprised at the number of business people that don't know these vital numbers in their business. Sure, yeah, you got, cost of goods sold, food cost is 20%, labor cost is 30%, but they've got no idea how much it costs to get a new customer.
Mhm.
And including they don't know the lifetime value of a customer. So that in itself is also a what's the word I'm looking for? Reason that you want to have customer retention,
Mhm.
uh, because lifetime value. I mean, for my one of my businesses, lifetime value is $5,000. So if I don't invest, that tells me I can spend quite a bit of money up front to get a customer because I'm going to get it all on the back end. Like I said, it only costs $22 to keep them.
Mhm.
So the process is getting that light bulb to click in showing them here's where the dollars are, because that's why we're not all altruistic. We're in business to make money or support our shareholders or whatever. Um, but you have to look at each one of the individual points, and you can't just look at marketing as a overall dollar amount, because we're all small businesses. So we don't have the luxury of doing what I call Goodyear blimp advertising, where they fly the blimp over top of the stadium, and hope to God they sell tires, right? I mean, I defy anybody to call Goodyear and say, hey, Ravens game was yesterday. The blimp was flying over. How many tires did that blimp sell you? They
Yeah.
won't know. They've got no clue. But we can't do that with our money. We need to be able to measure every single one of our marketing campaigns to know whether there is an ROI on it or not. So a lot of times we have to look not at the big companies, but if you're going to fly a blimp, great. Put a blimp up there, but put a message on there that says, call now, 10% off your tires, enter this code. Well, now it's measurable. So a lot of this just comes down to numbers.
Yeah. I think too, what you talk about is the important, like Goodyear or Disney, because that's been the example I've leaned on to, or, some of the other things you've worked on, the Smithsonian,
Yep.
they have a budget that'll allow them to do huge brand building, emotional, top of funnel brand building campaigns. And those things are super valuable, especially when you're hitting a super mass market like they are,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to have reach. Um, I think the thing that people maybe should pay more attention to, right? And a lot of people who are listening to this will be teams, in leagues, and they'll have big enough budgets that they should be focusing on some of this stuff. But if you go back to the idea about the touch points, some of these like special service offerings and some of the things like the if you're late you stop and get some flowers for the person, those are like a small, can be a small business's form of emotional connection and
Mm-hmm.
building brand building. And I think that the important thing, at least from my point of view, that I try to get across to people is like going, what emotion do you want to activate? What emotion do you want people to have when they deal with you?
Yep.
How much emphasis do you place on positive emotion, or I guess like sometimes there's also the opposite side, because you want to create a little bit of a negative emotion against the people you're competing against. And I know that
Sure.
having that enemy is super valuable when it comes to marketing and branding. But yeah, how do you talk about that with people?
Yeah, well, 100%. I think that, one, you've got to create the emotional connection within the first few seconds of any interaction with your business. I call it moment zero. That time when you kind of get that gut feeling like, yep, this is the company for me, or nope. And once you have moment zero, then you start building on the emotional connections. And you can do this any number of ways. Remember, I mean, people do business with people, not businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So allowing your personality to shine through in your business. One of the things I do, I shamelessly use my children in my marketing. So and I get it. My kids love it. I mean, they're all older now. They're not cute anymore. But like my daughter, she would do ballet. She was 5 years old. I took a picture of her in her tutu at the recital, and I put it in my newsletter that I sent to all of my customers. And then I just started doing that every year. Every recital, new picture goes in. She's about 11 or 12 years old. We're in the grocery store, and this lady comes running up to us, said, "Oh my God, Emma, how was your recital?" And my daughter and I look at each other. We're like, who the hell is this lady? We're going to go hide in the frozen food section. And then I had to think, she's one of my customers. She has watched my children grow up
Yep.
with me. I've got thousands of people like this. That lady's never leaving my company. I mean, I got to royally screw
Mm-hmm.
up or she's going to die before she leaves the company. And that's the kind of connection. Now, all right, you don't want to use your kids? Fine. Do you like fishing? Do you like knitting? I mean, something that you can relate to your customers and really create that emotion. Like I said, but pretty soon I'll probably be using my grandkids, but right now the kids are working. But there's all sorts of ways. You can't just. I've got this competitor across the bridge from me. He's one guy, right? One guy
Mm-hmm.
in one truck. And you call up his office, and it says, thank you for calling. Press 1 for the commercial division, press 2 for the residential division, press 3 for the janitorial division. He's got like 6 options. Every single one of them goes to his cell phone. Now, why are you trying to make yourself look big when you're not? You're going to get called out.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to know it. Not to mention, people want to do business with the local guy if they can do it. And so you got to be true to yourself and use what you have in your background, in your personality, to really separate yourself from your competitors. As I said earlier, every business is a commodity. The dentist is a dentist is a dentist. There's only so many ways to clean teeth, right? So what separates one dentist from another? It's the in-office experience that's delivered. So that's really the only differentiator especially when we're talking about, commodity markets.
So it's interesting that you describe the commodity, like you do both explanations for commodity on both sides, because my philosophy is always like you're not destined to be a commodity, because there's so many things about the experience in the
Sure.
way you offer service that you can control. To your competitor, hopefully your competitor won't listen to us us talking here, because we don't want him to win. We want to keep it so that you continue to beat him. But in his case, the smaller thing is better if he embraced that, because then it's like you're dealing with the owner, right? You're
Right.
dealing with this person. I mean, it's a mistake. But the thing about using things that humanize you, those things are really, really powerful. And those will play in no matter what business you're in, because,
Right.
anybody who's listening to this podcast and has listened to more than 1 or 2 episodes definitely knows certain things about me that, like, I will share and I will, promote. They've definitely heard about my son and my wife. They've seen pictures of them.
Right.
They know my love of like whiskey and craft beer, and like how I will go look for these things. My love of Pearl Jam, and like how I will
Okay.
travel all over the world to go see Pearl Jam. All of these things. But then people come up to you, and it's like, and the important thing for, I think, people when they think about this experience and offering a customer experience, is that they already have a positive association with you. And so
Right.
then when you, even though they may be a stranger to you, you are not a stranger to them. So they already feel like they're uh, doing business with somebody
Yep.
they know. And like you said, people are not going to walk away from that. It's much harder. The It's like building like chains, like,
Right.
over people, and not in like a manipulative or bad way. It's just like,
No.
there's so much, like, to the starting premise of our conversation, which is that, like, so much service is awful. It's impersonal. It's antiseptic. It's not at all thoughtful. And these are like simple things you can do, and even it doesn't matter what size business you are, right? Because
Right.
people feel like they have a parasocial's the term
Right.
relationship with Mickey and Minnie Mouse, with Donald Duck, right? Like, I
Yep.
mean, the same can go for if you are a venue or a team, your players, your mascots. It's like I was thinking about Mr. Met when you had the video of your financial services thing. Like, you could have like
Yep.
Mr. Met or whomever. Um, how reluctant are people to buy into this idea is my question to you, because I know that, like, people feel like they have to be, so the same way there's silos in the business is still
Right.
like the way they silo other aspects of their existence, right? And
Yep.
I know that, like, the example you use of like wanting to do business with the small guy or feeling that they know you, can be a powerful differentiator, and so when you have that conversation with people, what does it go for, and like, where do people, buy in or don't buy in? Like, what are the gaps
Yeah.
in that?
Yeah, I mean, and to go back real quick to one of your points about my competitors listening, I mean, I've been on industry specific podcasts, and I know, I mean, I found my competitors hiding in the bushes watching what my guys do, and none of them copy it. They're either too lazy, too stupid, or they can't afford it. So I don't worry about, I really don't. Um, and then also, all of the things we're talking about are building the brand that is
Hmm.
going to precede you. As you said, how far in advance is your brand coming, into play, through word of mouth marketing, through referrals, etc., and bringing it, that much further out than just oh, I need a plumber today. Oops, I need a carpet cleaner today. Whatever. And I think especially with the teams, and the stadiums and things like that, there was a great interview with the Savannah Banana guy, and he was asked, if Roger Goodell from the NFL called you, and he immediately said he would never do that. Didn't even let him get the question out. But if he did call, what would you do to help the experience for the NFL? Because right now, yeah, the experience is all online. They're not doing anything really in the stadiums because of all of the broadcast money that they get. And so there's a huge upside available, I think, to the NFL by taking in some of what the Savannah Bananas do. I mean, you introduce the players. Great. Why do they come out of the little itty bitty tunnel where nobody can see them? Why can't they be in one of the stands and run down the steps and then jump onto the field? And somebody's going to say, oh, yeah, security, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, baloney. You can figure this stuff out. So how do you can certainly do this. I mean, I can't, what's the Savannah Banana guy's name? I can't remember, but
Jesse,
Jesse, right. I
hmm?
mean, absolutely
He's been on the
brilliant.
podcast. We've had him on.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. But he has really been able to, take something, I don't want to say boring, but minor league baseball and turned it into something where you go to the event to be with other people to be entertained. And I think, so much so, I mean, COVID ruined it for everybody, with everybody now on Zooms and we don't like to go places and things like that. But now you've got that reason to go and you're excited, you've got more affinity with the team. And I think if more people addressed it that way, um, these teams would have a even better in stadium experience because, I mean, let's face it, you go to a football game in the stadium, it's kind of boring, because
Well,
you're
there's so
not
much
getting all of
downtime
the
between
replays and
plays.
the you're not getting the cuts and the replays and the commentary. It's just the play's over, and okay, now we got 30 seconds of nothing till the next play. So, what could the NFL be doing to make that happen?
I felt a similar way about the last NBA game I was at. It's just like,
Oh,
in the NBA, there's a lot more action even in the NFL. It's just,
yep.
it becomes a little repetitive. It's like, I'd probably rather almost be at home. And I think this is important because what most people seem to, there's a couple things. You've talked a lot about putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, which is like, again, I teach this executive brand management class, and I go, the first thing you need to know is that you are not the customer, and that your idea of what the customer wants is likely dangerous because you make a lot of assumptions. And so I think one of the assumptions is that, like, because people care so much in these positions, care so much about the productions or the musicals or the sport, that everybody should. And the truth is, no, nobody cares as much as you do because your paycheck depends on it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I try to keep, this is like one of those things that when I'm selling to people, I go, one of the benefits that you get from working with somebody outside is that I'm dispassionate. I'm not emotionally connected to you. It's the same way, like, you have to be with developing your customer experience because your emotions are going to trick you. So back to the question, which is like, how do you help people understand the importance of getting out of their own heads and seeing things like you said, where it's like going, this is a little repetitive, this could be a little dull, there's a lot of downtime. How do I make the experience of somebody coming to the stadium, to the arena, to the venue to see this show exciting, worth the time to get off their couch? Because what we're really dealing with is a fight against the status quo. Because the customer service at our house is pretty great because, like, outside of this door here that you can't see, there's a refrigerator full of craft beer.
Yep.
There's a nice, freshly redid bathroom. It's great customer service here. Usually I get my son to go get it for me. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you help people understand that? Because that is a huge challenge, is to get people out of their own head, and like
Right.
look at it from the customer's point of view.
Yeah, and unfortunately, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, my customer experience really sucks. I should call Vance. I wish the conversation happened more often, but it doesn't. And really, I mean, if you are being coupon clipped, if you are being, price shopped all the time, and you're trying to break free of that, you've got to offer something that nobody else offers, and you have to look outside the industry in order to really create something that is a bit different. So I had a oil change company. He's kind of like a Jiffy Lube, Quick Lube, but he was an independent. Had four stations, and every time one of his competitors ran a coupon, he had to run one, and it was just a race to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's no competitive advantage to being second cheapest.
No.
I mean, you can't use that in a headline. So I said to him, I said, well, why don't we go the other direction? Now, remember, highly commoditized oil changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't get any more commoditized. And so what we did is we turned his business into like a 1950 style service station. And we just went through a lot of brainstorming. And so now you got four guys that run out. They got white shirts, bow ties on, little gloves. One guy squeegees your windshield. The other one checks the air pressure in your tire. One guy escorts you into the waiting room where there's a barista ready to make your favorite coffee drink for you. And there's today's newspaper. Now, nobody is expecting today's newspaper, because it's just a waiting room. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But it's the barista that puts it over the top. And it's actually one of the oil change guys that is doing the coffee. They rotate. They love this thing. And when I tell this story to people, this is when it clicks, because one, his employee retention has gone through the roof. His least tenured employee is 19 months. Now, in that world, that's like 6 lifetimes. His customer retention has gone through the roof. His repeat is now close to 80% of his business, 20% new, 80% repeat. And
which is a
and his
pretty healthy
prices.
mix for people who don't understand the numbers. You don't about 15 to
Oh,
20% new customers is fantastic.
I mean, that's the ratio Disney uses. I mean, right now, if you went to Disney, 80% of the people in the park today have been there before. It's
Hmm.
20% new. I said, well, if that ratio is good enough for Disney, it's good enough for me. So
Yeah.
that's what that's what
Yeah.
I aspire to, because you're not going to go broke while you're growing the business. As we said earlier, the expense of getting a new customer versus keeping them. And you attract a different type of customer, one that appreciates that kind of level of service or that kind of experience. And he's 45% in price higher, and he's more than doubled his profitability just by making these little tweaks. And the only expense he really had was the coffee machine. Other than that, it was just training his employees. Um, and so it's not difficult, but look outside your industry for the ideas. I mean,
Hmm.
barista, oil change. Where do you think we got that idea? Where do you think the McDonald's drive-through guys, got the idea for the drive-through? They were probably sitting at the bank one day getting ready to make a deposit, and that little tube whooshed across with the deposit, and he's like, how do I get a milkshake into that thing? So you get the best ideas from
Hmm.
other industries, and it's just it just clicks. But
Yeah.
I don't think not many business owners, like I said, wake up and say, my business sucks or my customer service
Yeah.
sucks, I need to call somebody. They think that it already is. And there
Yeah.
was a study a little while ago. 80%, they surveyed the customers of the company, and they surveyed the owners. 80% of the businesses said that they deliver great experiences. 80%. When they surveyed the customers, only 8% of the customers thought that that business delivered a great service. So there is a huge disconnect between what you think you're delivering and what you're actually delivering to your customers.
Hmm.
Um, and it's only until they reach out to me that I can actually help. I wish people would just, kind of on their own wake up and smell the coffee, so to speak, but they just don't. And it's through podcasts like this. Like I said, my mission, one business at a time. So if one guy listening to this does something, well, my day is complete.
Yeah. I too, it's and I tell people I call it lovingly steal.
Hmm.
I want you to lovingly steal from other places that you see good ideas, right? And
Yeah.
it's I had an offline story about customer experience, or actually, it really is like one guest on the podcast. I was like, "Oh my God, you're like lovingly stealing," and I put it in the show notes, and the guy freaked out, and he was like, "I don't want people to think I'm stealing," and I was like, and he like blew a gasket. It was amazing, and I was like, so I haven't used the term in a while because I was just like, this is causing more trouble than it's worth.
Right.
But I want you to do that because if you this is again a important lesson. It's like you can't have all of the best ideas, and all of the best ideas are unlikely to come from your industry
Nope.
because most of the time you're copying each other. They call them best practices, and really what it is a race to the bottom. It's a
Yeah.
race to be average, right? But this barista idea is amazing because you said 40% increase in the cost of that $2 or $3 it costs to make each of those drinks is
Right.
more, even if the person has two or three drinks while they're waiting, it's
Right.
more than made up for in that 40% of in the oil change, and the retention thing. How much does it cost to train somebody, right? How much
Yeah.
institutional knowledge is lost? Like all these, because they know they're going to be there for a while. How much better do they treat the customers? I mean, all these just positive things that make it so easy, and then 80% of the people come back. I mean, that
Yep.
should be that there's a lesson there.
Oh,
And it's
huge.
a really powerful lesson, which is that like don't just because everybody else is doing it. What was the thing about when you were
Yeah.
kids and like your mom, just because all your friends are jumping off the bridge, does that mean you're going to jump off
Yeah.
the bridge? No,
Exactly.
you got to go. What would they be doing on the opposite
Yeah.
side?
I mean, I
Um,
call it marketing incest. I mean, if you back when we had the yellow pages and I was first
yeah,
starting my business, I went in and I looked at the yellow page ads, and every single ad had a picture of the guy's van or truck in the ad. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell's this got to do with carpet cleaning? And everybody had a picture of we assume you can get to the house. Your vehicle has nothing to do with the darn business. So, I mean, I did exactly opposite of what everybody did. And I put like 3 testimonials in the ad in place of the picture of the van, which had no use whatsoever. But you're absolutely right. You just copy and it doesn't get any better. It's like incest. I mean, the next generation's worse than the one before it. That's the way it happens.
This is like one of my biggest beefs with like the way that a lot of Broadway musicals are advertised is that they all pull like some pull quote from like a review, doesn't matter if it's good or bad. They plaster them all over the thing. That's the whole thing. And I was like, going, there's so much you could do if you just tried, but instead you just try to do exactly what everybody else does, and it's it's a waste. It's just like you talk about burning money. That's burning money.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, Vance, how do people find you on the internet? I mean, because I can go on talking about customer experience all day long.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. So obviously I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Vance Morris customer experience guy. And my website is a real easy one, vancemorris.com. And then for anybody who's not feeling overly creative, I have a download for you. It's called 52 Ways to Wow Your Customer Without Breaking the Bank. So one wow for every week of the year. Keep you busy for whole 12 months. And you can find that at wow52ways.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
Let me know what you thought about my conversation with Vance Morris by sending me an email to my name, dave@davewakeman.com. We are 47, 48, some kind of minutes into this podcast. So do me a favor. Share this podcast with your friends, colleagues, coworkers, anybody who you think might enjoy an episode like this conversation with Vance Morris. It helps me share the word, it gets new listeners, and helps me continue to have great conversations with people like Vance, and do the thing where you rate, review, and subscribe, the whole deal, right? Help me out. Make sure you visit my website. It's davewakeman.com, and get the Talking Tickets newsletter at talkingtickets.substack.com. And we have a Talking Tickets Slack channel. That link is in the show notes. Like I mentioned to you at the end of every episode, I could not do this without you. So thank you so much for being here and listening. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy.